You are live. Well, assuming this is working. Welcome, Chris Lehto. Lehto? I haven't. You pronounce your
Lehto, yeah,
name.
it's
Introduce
Finnish.
yourself.
I'm
Yes.
Chris Lehto. Lehto, it's Finnish.
All right.
Glad to be here.
Okay.
Maybe not under these
Uh,
circumstances, but yes.
yeah. So I am very happy to talk to you because we've kind of been going. Well, these circumstances are quite fine.
Yeah, yeah, I thought it
Right.
was
I was
good.
just.
We could have done a debate a while ago, but the subject was like so detail oriented. I figured the video debate was working, but I think at this
Yeah,
point
let
we
me
can
just
move on.
stop my screen sharing for a second because we're not there yet. All right. So this is actually the first time I've ever hosted a live stream. So it may be a few hiccups here and there, but we'll see. And I think let's set the scene first. Where we basically, over the last few years, I've been looking into these UFO videos and kind of investigating them and trying to figure out what's being shown in them. And I put forward a number of hypotheses over the years, and they've kind of modified a little bit now and then. And I've got all these explainer videos that I did. And you've recently come along, and you are a 18-year fighter pilot experience.
Yes, I guess I don't know much. You're retired. Would you
I'm
run a game company before, and you
I
retired?
did. I ran Neversoft, who did the Tony Hawk's Pro Skater video
Awesome.
game
I've been
back in
told
the
I look
day.
a little like Tony Hawk, actually.
Yes, yes, yes. You do look a little like Tony Hawk.
Yeah.
People tell me that as
So,
well, but I think you've got more of the Tony Hawk face than I do.
so yeah. So I mean, so same. I retired basically back in August, and we moved to Portugal. Everybody was like, if you're why don't successful or whatever financially independent people just go live at a beach somewhere? And so I was like, how can I make this happen?
Oh, we seem to have lost Chris. All right. Well, apologies, everybody. Hopefully, we can get him back in a second. He is in Portugal, so I don't know. Oh, instantly back. No, he's gone again. Having a few technical difficulties here. Well, I'm going to talk a bit about what I hope we're going to talk about when Chris does come back. What I would like to do is look at, first of all, the TIC TAC video, which is the famous Nimitz encounter video. And I've been talking about this one for years. I think since it was released in 2017. And what I want to do is kind of, let's see, Chris seems to be having some significant problems joining again. So I'm not sure if this is actually going to work, but we'll keep it going. Yeah, he's popping in and then he's popping out again. I think we might have to pause for a second so we can see if we can get Chris back in. This is just me running the show here. There's nobody else behind the scenes. So I apologize to everybody who has been waiting for this. He was definitely here a few minutes ago. But I do not know what is going on. So what I did want to do was talk about the Nimitz encounter video, the TIC TAC video. And I had everything ready to talk about it. I got the video primed on my monitor there. I was going to share my screen. And I was going to go through the various parts of the video, and especially focusing on the end of the video, where I've always maintained that the Tic Tac object doesn't actually rapidly move off to the left-hand side. It just loses lock and just continues moving at exactly the same rate it was moving before. And Chris put up a video where he kind of disagreed with me, and he was kind of showing some things in a flight simulator, DCS, Digital Combat Simulator, and he thought that this showed that this wasn't true. But I think he kind of was missing a few points about what was on screen at the time. And I asked him to come on this this stream so that we could have a discussion about that video and his interpretation versus my interpretation. And he agreed to do this. And then I think he went and looked at the video again, and Chris is back. Chris, what was going on there? That was kind of like you were popping in and out of existence like some kind of hologram. Oh, you're gone again. Oh dear. StreamYard is not working very well. And I paid for the full thing as well. I don't think there's anything I can do from my end. So I might try starting a new stream and starting that again, but that is going to require a new YouTube stream, which is going to be a bit awkward. I'm going to give him one more chance to come back, and then we'll perhaps try going for a new stream. Let me bring him up on Google, on Twitter. Apologies again to everybody. We're having some technical difficulties. Chris was here for the first few minutes, but then he has disappeared, and I don't know what's actually going on. There is no real options for StreamYard. You just kind of have somebody join, and then they pop up. He is in Portugal, which is not a backward country at all. They have perfectly good internet over there, and he's done StreamYard before for a couple of hours. So I think that he's having some kind of local intermittent issue over there, and we might have to reschedule for another time if I can't bring him back on. We could perhaps reuse Zoom, but I think maybe what we're going to do is reschedule for another time. Seeing as Chris isn't here, I don't really want to get into any of my points. Oh, he says his computer crashed. So that at least is something that can be fixed. He's going to reboot his computer, and he'll be back in 2 minutes. So let's see. I'm just going to set the scene for people in the chat. We're going to be talking about the FLIR 1 video. The FLIR 1 video is this video here. This is the Tic Tac video, supposedly. Now, this is the video that was shot by Chad Underwood, perhaps about an hour, I think, after Commander David Fravor went out. And the main point of contention I had with Chris was right at the end, right here. You see the object appears to kind of zip off to the side. There's a couple of aspects to this. One is that there's a little change from 1x to 2x zoom right here, where you see the object get bigger. It changes size from this small object to something twice the size, and it looks like it speeds up. And if you correct for that, though, most people understand that that's just the 2x zoom. If you correct for that, then it actually moves off to the side at a relatively slow rate. And my argument there was that the rate of movement that it moves off to the side is the same at which this number up here is changing. That it's just simply was tracking the object, and then it lost lock on the object, and now it is off to the is just continuing off at the same rate it was before. So Chris disagreed with this, and when he comes back, he can kind of explain his thought process there. And he then, I think, took a deeper look at it, which is great. And I think one of the issues, and this is something I'll talk about with Chris, is that a lot of the people who disagree with me really haven't taken the time to go frame by frame through these videos and see what's actually going on. There's a lot of stuff going on earlier in the video where it's changing lock and there's things happening. There's like this little rotation right here, for example, which hopefully we could talk about, where the object again loses lock again. You see the bars widen, and you see it re-center on this particular object. Let's see, Chris is still working on getting his computer back up and running. I think he just said he just bought a new webcam, so perhaps there's some kind of hardware issue there. You know, what happens when you install a new system? Everything goes wrong. Okay. Should be here in a minute. It's definitely still working on it. It's here. I can see him here in my Twitter. Let's see what's going on in the chat here. Just going to experiment with clicking on something and seeing if it comes up on screen. Oh yeah, magic. Never used this system before, but I've seen the other cool UFO kids use it, so I thought I would give it a go. Let's see. There's a question from Jampisu, who says, "Is Mick in the US or the UK?" And I am in the US. I'm in California, and Sacramento, California, near where all the fires are. I am, in fact, originally British, now half British, half American. Gradually becoming more and more American, but still got my accent. All right, how do I hide this? Okay, let's show something else. Oh, Chris is back. Chris!
Sorry. I'm sweating, man. I had to change. My computer just died for some reason. Of course, test it.
Well,
it doesn't matter.
Yeah, right, well, you seem to be up and running fine just now. So
okay.
Thank you
for
running around. Yeah,
excellent.
Yeah, I've just been entertaining people with my.
I could hear you actually, so I heard all your points.
Oh, really?
While you were talking.
Okay, yeah. Oh, good. That's good. All right. Okay, so I guess we should get into it then, seeing as people have been patiently waiting for things to get started. So let's talk about the gimbal. The FLIR 1 video, known as the TIC TAC video, and also the Nimitz video. I'm going to pop it up on screen so that we can see what we're talking about. All right. So the disagreement we were having the other day was kind of about this particular video, and specifically about the bit right at the end of the video, where the object seems to zip off to the left like really rapidly. And this is something that I think a lot of people have had. There's basically two camps on this, the interpretation of what's going on here. One camp, which I am in, is that the object isn't doing anything amazing. I have this video called "No Sudden Moves," and it's just losing lock, and the object is continuing to move off. And the other camp is that this object is doing all kinds of crazy movements, demonstrating high G maneuvers, and which means that it's probably some kind of advanced technology, and this is a view that you kind of subscribed to for a while, and that's why I invited you onto this talk. But then you said yes, and you also said now you changed your mind. So what happened?
Yeah. So basically, so I made a video. I think I was overconfident and behind timeline, basically, and I couldn't, like you said, there's two camps. There's like, do you see it as it's an alien craft moving, or is it, there's no way it could possibly be. And so when I started looking at this video, the first time I saw it, and we'll talk through, there are some optical illusions that you talked about. It did blow my mind because of that acceleration, right? That you see that acceleration. And when we look at it, when I originally thought the engagement was happening, is I thought they were following it. I thought Chad Underwood was following it, and so that basically caged my brain into this scenario, right? And so I would say, which happens all the time, and I see it everywhere in this field, is people believe a certain thing, and you just cannot pull them away from that belief, right? No matter how much evidence you show them, it just doesn't matter. They're not going to look at the evidence. So, I mean, I am aware of bias. I'm aware of that. When I first looked at it, that's the impression I had, and then that's when I saw it. You can't see it clearly moving, and the angles up at the top, when it's moving, are just going. They're going so slow. Yeah, if you look at that angle, so that's your azimuth angle as it's tracking, right?
Yeah.
And in this pod, as it's tracking, the tracking rate is so slow. and based on the intercept geometry, or what I assumed, I actually went back and listened, it was not. That's why I also bit off on that, and basically did not go through and check your math. And that's my own fault. I should have known better. You've shown me in the past that, you're very smart when it comes to all this, to the camera. You're obviously a smart guy. And basically I was just, I screwed up basically. Cocky fighter pilot, standard.
That's what I heard.
But then, and you wrote me back, and and I was like, like he didn't write me on all the other ones. And I don't know, maybe you tried. I didn't have it set up.
Yeah, I put comments on your YouTube videos, I think, occasionally, but I think this was the
I
first time
caught one, and then I
actually
went back
DM'd
and
you.
okay, yeah. So you wrote me, and I was like, yep. And so I went and I checked, actually, so I think subscriber, I deleted, but I wrote down, I believe it was Tev, the subscriber, and then there was another guy, Todd, and they just explained it very clearly, your argument, again.
Okay.
And I listened to them. If someone explains something and their first sentence is like, "You're an idiot," or something like that, I try, I go through and I make a point to try and read all the comments, but it's still very hard, to look at that. It's just hard. And so that's where I bit off on it. And there's one other point. The actual pod, so the field of view of the AppFlare pod is actually smaller than the Sniper XR pods that I used the whole time.
Okay.
So it's very similar technology, but it's not exactly the same. And so what you get is a smaller field of view. Your Sniper XR is going to be a 1 degree field of view and narrow. And like you obviously know, this is at 0.7. So it's quite a bit smaller. So the actual zoom rate, if I look on a narrow with a zoom 1 on my Sniper pod, it's going to be quite far zoomed out. If that makes sense. We call you're looking down a soda straw, if you will, at this thing. As you know, I believe you're a camera expert, from what I understand.
Well, I have a lot of cameras, and I've done a lot of camera analysis, so I understand all the terminology and whatnot, and I can do the math.
Yeah. So in this case, so what I'm used to looking at, a narrow 1.0 in Sniper, narrow, zoom 1.0 in a Sniper pod, is a 1 degree field of view, and what we're looking at right here is a 0.7 degree field of view.
It doesn't seem that much different. I mean, it would only be about, that much difference. But I guess, yeah.
Well, you're looking at points, but that's
50% more or so.
50%, yeah, almost. Yeah. So it makes quite a difference. Yeah, and so when you go 50% more, right, and then you zoom in on the 2.0, so you go to 2.0 zoom, then it's going to make an even bigger difference.
Yeah, it's going to 2 times.
Right there.
Interesting. Yeah, right here, something that people, just real quick, it says the zoom level here, but this indicator lags a little bit behind what actually happens, and you see it, the object is doubling
jumps,
in size.
Right? It appears to jump.
Yeah.
Yes.
So it's right here. It says 1 times, and right here, it's actually at 2 times, even though it still says 1 times for a couple of frames, and then it pops up. So
exactly.
A little lag between the hardware and the display in some aspects. So this is at 2 times here, and this is at 2 times here. So now it's at 0.35. So this is a super narrow field of view.
Yes. Yes. And so when you look at, you combine those things with that jump that you see there, that optical jump, then it very much feels like it goes out of the frame.
Yeah.
And so, and based on a Sniper frame of view, like that thing would have to be flying, I think, like almost twice as fast.
Yeah.
So,
and if you play this little bit at the end, you can kind of see it's not really going super fast right there. It's this kind of optical illusion that you see. But of course, other people will say that this is actually movement 2, and that this indicates some kind of actual acceleration away. So, what kind of changed your mind about it accelerating away versus lock being lost? Because my hypothesis has always been like, here we see the various changes in the camera, like this one here. There's the change from, I think, narrow to medium field of view. lock gets lost, it widens the targeting bars, and then it regains lock and carries on. But in the last one, it just doesn't.
Yeah, I mean, again, I'm not a pod expert. You know, I used them for, you know, you use these things for like 17 years. You know, as an instructor, so you get into teaching people. So again, I'm not an expert. I know I've worked with Dave Fouch. I ask him questions. But here, it doesn't. The pod actually, from my understanding, at least for sniper, is that it's just going to track the object in your IR using the IR sensor, right? It's just going to track it in that, and then it doesn't matter what other things you're showing. Like you can swap out TV, you can swap out wide field of view, IR or medium, but it's still tracking the object separately, if that makes sense. Like I can swap between TV and IR, and it's not reacquiring.
So
the pod doesn't
you
physically reacquire.
That's an interesting thing. I never thought of that. So you think that when it's in TV mode here, it's tracking with the IR camera?
Normally it does. I mean, I don't know if I'm not sure if there's like air-to-air processing mech and it tracks with the electro-optical camera.
Yeah.
But from what I understood, again, I'm not an expert in sniper, is that it tracks off of one sensor, and that was the IR sensor, and then it's showing you the other locations.
That would make sense.
So,
but let's just see like here what happens when it changes from IR to TV, because right here it's at the end of the IR.
There's another thing too, because you look here in TV field of view, this is actually more zoomed in. On the sniper, the TV is actually more zoomed in. So look, this is so what are we in now? This is in TV, so electro-optical mode. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, so this TV narrow 2 times field of view. So this is again the maximum zoom. And you're saying you think this is a bit even narrower field of view than the IR mode, or you think it's
so if you look, I guess go to a stable back a few frames, and you get so look at the.
I hear.
Yes. Well, again, in sniper, the TV sensor is actually more zoomed in than the IR sensor. So your field of view and the TV and IR modes are different. When I've seen some data specs that say that it's 1 degree for both the TV electro-optical mode here, and for the same, I'm sorry, 0.7 for both in this. But I believe, just looking at this, that the TV mode is more zoomed in.
Right.
So it has a narrower field of view.
I'm just going to
you can check here by the tracking gates. So if you look at the tracking gates, I'm
just flipping here between the two. This is IR and this is TV, and they seem kind of more or less the same. I think narrow 2 on both of them there, but so I'm not sure if it is actually more zoomed in. Perhaps it's maybe get them closer together. This is probably a more accurate one right at the end of here, where we're a little bit closer to the object. And if I go between that and that, it does look a little smaller perhaps in IR, but really not very much. But because you expect it to be even bigger, so perhaps you're right there, but I'm not sure how much it is. Chris just disappeared, and Chris has come back again. Can you hear me, Chris?
Yes, yeah, I could hear you the whole time. I'm sorry, I don't know what. I don't know. This StreamYard worked fine last week, so.
Yeah, no, you just dropped off for a second, and I just had to add you back. So I'm not sure what happened. All right, so what I was saying there was like I've got I don't think it's too important a point really. Just that there is perhaps some difference between TV, which is electro-optical mode, and the infrared mode in terms of size, which might have led to some misunderstanding in terms of what we're actually looking at.
Let me just finish.
Okay, yes, sir.
Yeah, so I just said, so basically I listened to Todd and them. I checked your math, okay, and based off the field of view for the IR of 0.7, basically that last maneuver, okay, is 0.18 degrees is what I calculated. That's how far it travels in 1.13 seconds. So, which is basically the same tracking rate that you see as the angle's moving. Yes.
Right. Yeah. And that was I was saying, and I think it kind of does more or less add up, that it does kind of match the rate of the tracking. So the hypothesis
Yes.
real simply for everybody is that we're following something, and then we just stop following it, and then the thing itself just continues moving at the same relative rate it was before. There's no actual acceleration, is the bottom line.
Well, again, so I mean, I guess that's one point, that I have issue with is like on your the video you mentioned, the no sudden moves video, or I think it's the longer one. Where you say at the end, okay, so I agree that we can't show definitively, I believe,
Okay.
that it moved quicker than was tracking, just because as you can see, it's too close, right? The angles that it's moving before that we get the break lock, and Chad Underwood said it broke his lock. We get before those angles match too closely to the speed that it travels out of the frame.
Right.
It doesn't mean that it didn't like accelerate crazily, but it's not proven or definitively shown in the video. So I concur with that. But it doesn't mean that this is a ordinary looking craft at all.
Sure. Sure.
Yeah, for me actually it clears up a lot of. It actually helped me, Mick. I know it sounds, I wish I didn't make that video, but I'm glad we're finally talking, because I thought that we were traveling. He was, the camera was traveling right behind him, and then it does this crazy loop, right?
Right.
But you did clear it up in my brain. It is moving. I think it's just this vanilla engagement. It's just going left to right, and they're slowly getting closer to this object. So I believe we're getting a good visual look at this thing. We're getting, and I thought before we were behind it, but now when you go back to that TV mode that we were talking about, I think this is very clear, actually. For a TV picture.
Yeah, well, it's not it's not the most well.
I mean, I can understand. Like to you guys, it looks, it just looks like a black blob. But it'd be like, you go outside. You just track this stuff all the time. Like I've seen so many I've locked up airplane every day going to and from the airspace. We lock up airliners and shoot them. Okay, I mean for practice. Okay, but yes, we are practice shooting. I'm just practicing our craft. So looking here, unless this thing, it doesn't even make sense. It would have to be close and completely out of focus. I mean, that's really the only way. And even then, you would see like some breakout of like a tail, or in IR for sure, you would see some heat.
So this thing here. This thing here we're looking at, this is in TV mode, so this is just.
I'm sorry. Light. Yes, yeah, you're right. Not in the IR. When we go to the IR, yeah.
Right, but this is it's black, so that kind of implies it's kind of backlit. The sun is behind it. If it was looking at, or unless we're talking about either a white Tic Tac shaped object or a plane, and planes are usually fairly light in color. Does it make sense as a black object?
Yeah, I mean, if you look at the planes, if you look at an airliner at range, I mean, that would be the best thing. If your argument is this is an airliner at range, which it could technically be, but yeah.
I think I'm moving more towards it being a smaller plane that's closer up. I'm not really sure. It's kind of difficult to see, and I think it's one of these things. I did a lot of work on it a few years ago, and I haven't done much work on it in recent times. And other people have pointed out various things, like you've pointed out various things, and I'm not entirely sure. I never wasn't really sure to start off with, but I'm kind of drifting more towards it being a smaller object that is closer up. What I'd like to do, if I could, is kind of go through the video from the start, because I think there's some interesting things earlier on in the video that might help if we kind of discuss it together and like talk about what we're actually seeing.
Yeah. Awesome.
No. So this is like zoomed in all the way, and this is right at the start. Let's see, we're in narrow, just 1 time zoom, so it's about half the size it is for most of the for a lot of the video. And right at the start in this video, we're in white hot, so this is like some kind of heat source. The object appears as this kind of round, blurry type object, and we move a little bit further on, and he changes to 2 times zoom. We get a much more detailed picture. I wish you would be in this a lot more. But here,
Yes.
what does this look like?
Nothing I've seen.
But I mean, to me, it looks like an infrared heat source, and glare. Like we see these spikes going up and down and kind of at 45 degrees, and then this kind of horizontal aspect to it here.
And that's, I think, honestly, that's, I think, also why I got tripped up thinking it was a rear aspect engagement.
Yeah.
Because it does look like an engine. And we're in IR. Yeah, so it looks like an engine, but it doesn't look, an engine has more defined characteristics, and like on your, I think flanker, when you showed F-18s behind, it'll have a more defined circle exactly where the heat is. And you would see something, this, you would see some sort of shape. That's, I don't know. It's just crazy.
But you wouldn't. This doesn't seem like this is the actual shape of the object, though. I mean, this I think is fairly clearly it's a glare. It's like it's the shape around the object, the heat source. It's not actually a star-shaped object that turns into a Tic Tac shaped object.
I don't think it's a star-shaped object. I mean, I think we're looking. Yeah. I don't know. Initially, I thought we were looking like from the back of an engine or something, or that was kind of the image I got. Or we're looking like if it could be like a cylinder, and then you're getting some weird heat effects around the sides. Yeah. I don't know. It's a crazy IR image. I honestly don't know what could produce that.
I'm wondering.
It doesn't look like anything else.
My kind of, I guess my working hypothesis right now is that initially the plane is more tail on, more kind of tail aspect, and perhaps angled a bit to the left, and then it becomes more angled to the left as we go through the video. So if you look at it at this point, it's very bright glare, if this is in fact the glare of infrared, and then he switches to TV mode for a while, so we don't get to see the transition really. We get to see this. We'll come back to that in a second. But when it goes back to IR, now it's still kind of like a bit star-shaped at this point, but then it kind of almost quickly, it's almost like it's adjusting the exposure. It becomes a bit more elongated at the start, and now I think you can kind of see that on the right-hand side, the glare has kind of shifted a bit more to the right, and then we've got this kind of a bit of a protrusion on this side, almost as if it has shifted over. So it's now kind of facing a bit more to the left, and the engines, in my theory, are now a bit on the right, and you can kind of see that here is the bright area here and a less bright area over here, which might be the actual plane or craft itself. And you keep going through that, and that kind of becomes a bit more apparent as you get further on, is that the right side is bright, and then later, right towards the end, right here,
look at that.
See bright area here, and then the plane sticking out on this side, under my theory.
I don't know. I mean, there would have to be some like serious malfunctions. If you just go and look at planes from the side, and it just doesn't. Yeah. It looks nothing like this, Mick. I mean, I think it's
out of focus, though. I think it's just out of focus.
But even if it's out of focus, I think you would have some blurrier. You would have a blurrier circle or something. I mean,
it's super low resolution, but it doesn't look like a Tic Tac, does it? I mean, it looks like this is the heat signature. It's not the shape.
I think your IR is weird. I mean, my own thoughts, obviously, is that Lieutenant Commander Slate, He also he mentioned he was in the the Nimitz, okay, with the Tic Tac. He was flying above, actually, with Lieutenant Dietrich, I believe. And so he saw it as well. He saw the Tic Tac from above, or he's, says he saw it. I believe him, but so he says he sees this thing flying around, and he said it had defined edges. But anytime it was when he looked at it, it had like wavy like heat lines on it, like it was kind of fuzzy. And he said that was like just like the tarmac when you get these weird heat effects. And the same thing was in the Aguadilla. I did the Aguadilla. I know you argue it's a Chinese lantern. From my argument, so my argument, you do see kind of weird IR effects as well.
Yeah, I'm not sure about. I think that's more a video, but we can maybe talk about Aguadilla in a second. But like Commander Slate, Dietrich's backseater, he was the senior pilot, or the senior officer in that plane. They were up high, they were doing top cover, and he said he saw this heat haze around the object, but nobody else saw that. I mean, Commander Fravor doesn't mention that, and he got right up and close with it. So it seems a bit. How would he have seen that? It's a bit incongruous. I mean, obviously,
he's not so far away though. But it is interesting. Why didn't other people notice it?
Maybe it's a question to do with the angle and the background and something like that. But obviously it's possible.
So he's overhead, and I believe the Tic Tac climbed up to Fravor's altitude, close to 13,000. So he's really about 2 miles away from this. He could be as close as 2 miles or less, just if he's at his level altitude. So from 2 miles away, I mean it's still kind of far. You could make out detail, I think, some detail.
Yeah, but it's very irregular as well. The heat signature around this thing. But there's a couple of other things I wanted to mention. This might may kind of deep diving a little bit into some of my theories, but one thing that Fravor kind of disagreed with me on was the gimbal roll. Now, the gimbal roll we talk about in the context of the gimbal video, and this is the hypothesis that the glare in the object in the gimbal video is in fact glare and that it's rotating. But I don't really want to talk about gimbal. I want to talk about this. And in the context of this video, I think we're also seeing these gimbal rolls. Where did I put my little camera? So the targeting pod is kind of like a pan tilt zoom camera like this one, and it's mounted sideways instead of up and down. And so when it's tracking, it goes from left to right like this. And when it gets to 0 degrees, I believe it has to do a gimbal roll correction to get to the other side, and so it can continue tracking. And I have a variety of videos kind of trying to explain that. And Fravor was saying that that's something that doesn't happen. Like the only time that the camera rotates is when you're tracking something from front to back, and it has to go all the way back. And he says that the camera will flip over at that point, and I disagree with him on that. Now, of course, he's super squadron commander Fravor who uses these cameras, and I don't. But my thought there is that it was kind of twofold. My objection was twofold. One was that there's no reason for the camera to flip over when it's going from front to back, but there is when it's going from side to side physically. Now, when you're in the plane, and you obviously have actually done this, you're tracking something that's in front of you and it's moving, so it's behind you. The camera will kind of go down, 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 track it down, and if it kept doing that, the picture would be upside down. So if you're tracking something that's below you, that goes from in front of you to behind you, you can't just simply point the camera at it. It would be like, say, something's flying overhead of you. You start looking up at it. At some point, you have to turn around and start looking the other way. Are you following that? Does that make sense?
Yes. Yeah. No. It's a normal. So when you're attacking a target, right? If you're with a laser guided bomb, right? You release the weapon, and then you're flying towards the target. You check, and you have to laser the target, right, the whole time, because the bomb is going in, following the laser. if you just continue straight and you just fly right over the target, right? It'll tell you the bomb's going to hit about the same time that you are flying over the target. So yes, that is where I've seen the gimbal. We know about it. We train it. We turn around it. Is if you fly right over the target, the whole targeting pod will spin, and it makes it very difficult for you and the pod to stay on the same target. If that makes sense.
What I'm wondering there though is the targeting pod actually spinning, or is it just the image is being corrected so it's the right way up? Because if something is like, where something's in front of the plane over here, we're pointing at it, and it's moving this way. Obviously the plane is moving, but say it's moving this way. This will continue rotating down, and all it's going to do is going to kind of continue rotating back in this direction. So it's just following it. There's no reason for the pod itself to actually spin, because we can just do this. But at this point, if it simply continue, then the picture would be upside down that you're getting from the video if we're just taking the raw image coming from that. So my thought here is that if in the situation you describe, from your perspective, what you see is an upright picture, and then you see looking straight down picture. Doesn't really matter which way it is, but once it's gone past you and it's behind you, the picture would be upside down. So something inside the system, like the derotation mechanism, flips it 180 degrees. So it's now the right way up. So the horizon is up, even though the pod is looking backwards. But the pod itself hasn't actually done a rotation.
So you're asking do I think the pod doesn't rotate? It's actually just the software that rotates the image. Is that what you're?
Essentially, yeah.
I think it's. I don't know. I would have to confirm. I believe it's the actual pod rotates, because it's difficult for even the pod to track it. I think. So it is my impression.
How would that work though? I mean, if you think about this, the system, what's rotating? All it can do is this. Or up down, and going from front to back, all it's got to do is this kind of up down rotating the ball thing so it's pointing backwards. There's no reason for it to rotate around and be pointing up here.
Well, I mean, yeah, I guess that's what my impression is, because I believe it's like two. It can only go up and down. It can spin. Let's say it can spin this way, and it can go up and down, but it cannot go left and right.
Right. Yeah, but if you're just flying over something, all it's doing is going underneath you. There's no reason you can't. There's no actual rotation possible at that point. But from your perspective, looking at the camera, it would rotate 180 degrees to keep the horizon up, or in the right position.
Well, usually we're just looking down, essentially. But yes, you're
right.
Yes.
Yeah.
Either way, the image rotates for sure. I know it's an issue because we train around it, and my understanding is it's a mechanical issue in the pod. Okay. Because if it was just software, this is a I would want to fly right over the target because I get closer. I get my lasers even to a smaller. I get more accuracy. I would want to fly over this for sure. So if it was just a software change that they could just say, hey, flip it, it would have been implemented differently. So I believe it's the mechanical.
That would be good to resolve. Anyway, I really want to just kind of raise the issue with you so that we both have it out there as a point of discussion, and perhaps we can figure out some way of resolving this later. And that's probably the best way to kind of go with this type of thing, because I don't think we're going to be able to fully resolve these issues. But I think it's more
to talk on basic arguments, and then we can.
But let me.
I do have a question though.
Oh, okay.
One question though. So when you had that picture, I guess so what do you think it is? I guess if it's a small aircraft nearby, and I want to say what's also very weird is, so after this lock, like it doesn't show the acceleration that we see, but after this lock, you have Chad Underwood. He seems like a very capable fighter pilot who just cannot reacquire this thing. I mean, if what I would do immediately, I'm 100% sure what you're going to see in the next, as soon as this thing goes out of the frame, is he's going to switch back to a wide field of view image, 100%.
You think? No,
So
I'd agree with you there, but
yeah,
I suspect he didn't. I suspect that's what
well, they
actually
just
happened. Is
ended.
he didn't
No, yeah,
discuss doing that. And at this point, it's lost the lock. It's going off to the side, and he switches to 2 times zoom. So that's the wrong thing to do at this point. Obviously, it's kind of like fraction of a second decision type thing. But I know at this point it's really going off the side, and
yes, that's what I'm
the
talking about.
he
So
should
my
go
point is,
to medium or wide.
100%. So that's what we're trained. Like we train all through training. Anytime there's any sort of, whatever, you're gonna get information. He talks about that. He's trying to get information. As soon as this thing goes outside of the field of view of the app flare, I guarantee you, he went to wide field of view, which is going to go way back out wide. And then he started looking immediately into his radar to try and pick this thing up. So as soon as you go to wide field of view now, this thing should be in it. Okay, he should see it right away and then be able to quickly just slew to the left. Like there's no reason this should be this. So to me it is just very, very strange that he's flying an F-18. There's nothing faster than us or an F-18 out there. He has all his radar. It's clear day. There's no there's no other planes out there that I'm aware of anyway. So my question is, what could it be?
I actually think that he didn't go to wide field of view. I think he was distracted for some reason, doing whatever he was doing in the back seat, and for a few seconds he just simply did not keep his eye on it, and it went off the side. I don't know if you read the document that's referred to as the executive report. This is something that was created by ATIP a while ago by interviewing the people at the time. And one of the people they interview is Chad Underwood. It seems like that from the document. His name is retracted. And it says that he made no attempt to slew the camera, and he lost visual awareness.
Yeah, I mean,
Chad
that's
Underwood himself.
Yeah, I can't believe it.
And that was a quote from well, not a quote, but it was like basically based on interviews with him, and that's what he said.
Yeah.
And in later discussions, he talks about moving the plane around to try to find this object, which seems a bit much.
Unless you can't see anything in front of you, if you see something go in a room, and then you go in there and it's not there, you're going to start looking other places. When I listened, I've only listened to his interview with Jeremy Corbell, and in that he shows that he just could not find this thing again, and he tried like really hard, and that's what actually freaked him out. It's like it disappeared because he just couldn't find it. So I mean, imagine there's any plane out there.
Sure.
You have the Princeton radar, you have the F-18 radar. He's, unless it's some stealth secret thing. I mean, it doesn't make any sense to me. He would be able to track this down.
No, you're right. No, yeah. I don't understand exactly what's happened here, but I guess my feeling is that, and this is very unpopular opinion, is I kind of feel like Chad kind of messed up a bit in that he lost it. He didn't try to follow it. This was a very long time ago, and perhaps he doesn't remember exactly what he did, like whether he went to wide. Did he discuss anything about changing the field of view? Because, like you say, that's obviously
he said that was his. And people have asked me before. First, I've never seen any UAPs or anything, but people ask me like, what would you think, if you saw one of these things? And I think I would do exactly what Chad Underwood did, is like do everything I can to get this thing on all types of video. I'm sure his radar was videoed. I'm sure that's somewhere. Okay, I would love to see that as well, if we could see his radar maybe. And this, and I'm sure 100%. It's like a mission. He like he says in the interview, he's dropped bombs. He's been in combat. In this case, he's vectored onto this. His commander tells him to go video this thing. It's weird. No, 100%. He went to wide field of view. Immediately after this, he went to wide. I'm sure he went to wide field of view, and then he slewed where it was going, and just looked where it was going. And there's nothing there. I think that is It's very weird.
That's kind of like,
Yes.
I almost like, I don't know, it's a bit, we don't have direct evidence of that, but it's off the
I
screen
agree.
and we think something happened, but we can't really
I
say
do,
for sure that that happened.
and I agree. I mean, that's why I think it's worthwhile. I think the points you bring up are worthwhile and did help me. But you do have to remember it's in a much bigger context. I mean, this engagement is being followed by the Princeton radar, for instance. It's being followed
Sure.
on communication, and it just doesn't. So I guess my point is, if something is proven wrong, like basically I said that this is wrong, right? Which does have some repercussions. Apparently, I didn't realize, just on my opinion, but so if I say this is wrong, but at the end of your other videos, you say this means it's not it's not a UAP, and I just want to emphasize that that's not the case, and I think, Mick, that's why people do get kind of frustrated with your delivery style. Is then you say, because this is wrong, then it just didn't happen, and I don't agree. I think we need to move forward.
I know what you're saying, like, and I kind of agree. I don't think I've figured out what this object actually is. I think I've demonstrated. I think that it's probably not making certain moves in the video. Yeah, maybe after he goes off screen, it pops up.
I think you are right, man, and I agree. There's a lot of technical analysis out there saying that you're wrong and all this stuff.
Well,
And
the SCU, they agree with your initial assessment. They think that it does zoom off rapidly.
And but this is what it can happen, right? If people are using the same sources, then you can hear the same thing from different areas, and all of a sudden it like becomes more true in your brain. And so I've actually tried to not read other people's I guess analysis, because I didn't want to skew my results, which backfired with the bokeh. I also thought was was a reasonable. Again, it's a reasonable assumption, but it doesn't make it not a UAP. It just.
Let's talk about the bokeh in a second, because I want to just do one last thing on this video. Now, this is the gimbal stuff, and this is something I haven't really discussed publicly before. This little interesting hypothesis I'm going to throw at you, so you can mull it over. I think that we see in this video the same effects that we're seeing in the gimbal video. I think we see a gimbal roll, and I think we see a rotation of an infrared glare. I think also they're very difficult to see. And the gimbal roll is very easy to see, but the rotation of the glare less so. Now, that's the reason I kind of brought up the whole, the camera flipping only when it moves front to back and not left to right, which is, what Fravor was saying. I think it's kind of the opposite. It doesn't actually physically rotate front to back, but it does left to right. And I'm going to kind of demonstrate that here real quick. Let me just zoom out, find the right position. It is at 49 seconds into the video. Where is my counter? 49 seconds right here. All right, so here we are in infrared mode, and I'm just going to let it play from this point. And I think what you will see is that the entire sky rotates. So, there we go. You saw that? Just kind of everything's rotating. Now, I think that is a gimbal roll. I think that is the camera doing a gimbal correction as it moves from left to right. See, it's at 2 degrees left here. Like I was talking about before, if it's tracking left to right, it has to do a big correction at some point, so it can start tracking on the other side whilst pointing. Let's see, it's pointing up in this point, up 5 degrees. And so it does that, and it actually it loses the lock there, reacquires, and then later on it does another little one right there. There's another little roll.
Okay. But I guess my question is,
looks like
it looks like rotating. The gimbal actually, yes, it does. When we're looking down, at the target, it does like this quick spin. Mm-hmm. Yes, but why doesn't the glare rotate then, Mick? Why isn't the glare rotating like the gimbal?
This is what I'm getting to. That's what I'm getting to.
Okay,
so like I was discussing earlier, I think, let's zoom in a little bit here. I think at this point in the video, the glare is kind of right here. I think it's just on the right side, and this is actually the object itself, the plane. Now, right at the start of the video, this is all glare. I think this is all glare because we're a bit more tail aspect, a bit more like looking up the pipes of the engines, and we're seeing this very bright glare. Now, when we get to this rotation here, I think what we're seeing is a shape that has a glare, and I think it's kind of got an angle a bit like that, kind of like 45 degrees up to the left. And then a bit of the plane sticking out from behind the glare. And that when you look at what this started out as, the shape of the glare is kind of more horizontal at this point. It's this shape right here. When we go forward a little bit, the glare now is at 45 degrees because the camera is rotated. You seeing what I'm seeing?
I see it.
So it's kind of like almost like this at this point. So it's like this line.
I see.
You go
so
forward,
there's like
there's the rotation.
You're saying there's a small little craft, and then you can see this heat glare. I don't know.
Yeah, a heat glare. It's essentially the same as glare in the visual spectrum, but it's in the infrared spectrum. Optics are a bit different, but we still get the same phenomena of glare, and we see this in other videos. But I think we're actually seeing that glare rotate. It does appear to be something there that's at a certain angle before, and then when it rotates, it's now at a different angle. It's now more horizontal. I think the amount of rotation there is about 180 degrees, so it's hard to see. But during halfway through the rotation, you see the glare is at this angle here now, almost like 90 degrees to what we were at before.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's similar to the. I actually do kind of see what you're talking about. And let me. I haven't. We can talk about it later. My initial thoughts is that it's similar to many of these things are similar. Like bokeh, it is a factor. Bokeh is a factor. We do deal with it. Glare is a factor. We do deal with it, but not on the scales that you're talking about. If this was a normal little plane and that was your IR, engine shooting out the back, then we would never be able to identify little planes, based off our charting pods. You also get into other issues, Mick, where the further away this thing is, okay, you have to remember now that same field of view argument that you've used successfully, right? You were right. That same field of view argument now is going to mean that when it moves off the screen, at some point, at some point in range, it's going to be, ridiculous airspeeds. So it will be.
Yeah. So it limits
dynamic maneuvering. That's why. Okay. Yeah. I asked if you think it's a faraway plane because you would be in trouble if you said it's a faraway plane, because your field of view argument you made successfully shows that if it's flying at roughly fighter speeds, then this thing is not so far away. And in that instance,
I'm kind of leaning more towards that. And I think more work needs to be done there. And I think the stuff I've done so far is a little bit simplistic, and it doesn't take into account the rate of change of the heading indicator, because it doesn't change in a linear manner. It actually starts moving slower and then it moves faster later on.
I'm sorry. You said before that you think it was on Martin Lewis's UFO podcast. I'm sorry, Martin Willis, UFO podcast, and he said that Kevin Day, you ended up agreeing with Kevin Day that it couldn't be an F-18, but later on you kind of retracted. I don't know. What do you think?
I didn't agree with him. I think what I would have agreed with is some of the arguments is that if this was something that was on the same thing that was on Underwood's radar, and then on the FLIR, if it's the same thing, then if it was an F-18, especially a friendly one, well, it'll be friendly, then he would have got an ident on it.
If its transponder was working and everything.
Yeah, so that's what I agreed with, but what I disagree with is that that's what's actually happened. I mean, I think that I feel that he picked up something that he didn't realize what he was looking at. So he didn't have in his mind the exact correlation between this is the FLIR system and this is the radar. And I'm looking at this object on the radar and here it is on the FLIR. I don't think he had that direct correct connection. But that's obviously something that's to a degree lost in time because we don't have those tapes and memory isn't perfect. But that's going to be the theory there.
Yeah, but from what I'm looking at, that looks like no plane I've ever seen from the right.
Examples, let me see. I can just find some of infrared glare. This is one.
I mean, you keep talking about the glare, Mick, but I mean, it's just not an issue, man. These pods are better than I don't know. You're that little FLIR thing you're holding. I promise. Like,
yeah. But like this one here, you can see the engines kind of flaring up here. This is
exactly, and that's what it looks like from like a mile away, and
this is
and that's not what it looks like actually right there. Yeah,
and this was supposedly it says mid-tech. I don't know what that actually means.
Yeah, I mean the wideband IRs. Look at like MVGs, right? I mean, they look in the IR spectrum, but during the day you turn them on and you can't see anything. So it does matter where your sensor is, and the FLIRs, I believe it's medium wave, so it's going to be very different from other IR sensors. Like the little FLIR, this camera, whatever camera this is, I promise you, or I believe, is different from the FLIR.
Yeah, I know the FLIR is we haven't been able to get actual specs on it, but
like I've never seen that level of glare. The glare I've seen, I've showed it on my videos. You have like 3 F-16s flying away. You will see at their engine. You will see something, but I've never seen like that, for instance, or it would be at very, very far ranges. That's why the glare argument for me only makes sense if it's very, very far away, and then maybe you have some heat source very far away, and that occludes everything else. But I mean, of any time inside of any ranges, I mean, you see the little heat coming out of the engine. If you're looking right down the engine from the back, we will get some glare. But it's just going to be localized. Like you can still tell it's a fighter. You can still tell,
right.
You can count the engines.
I'm not sure what system this is, like Chinese thing, but yeah, you can obviously see the shape of the plane. You got a little bit of glare around it, like here.
That's like the worst I mean, that's honestly, it looks like that. Like that's what this plane is from the side. Yeah, I mean.
Yeah, you can see it quite clearly.
And so we don't even see that amount of, well, I guess it depends how close we are, but that seems like an excessive amount of IR plume to me. I don't think we would see that in an FLIR image.
Here's you see it. This is an interesting one because you see it tail aspect. Where's that still on? And all you see is glare, but if I just play it through, you'll see it bank to the side, and then you see the shape of the plane. It's because it's changing the exposure. I think you see that. Yeah, it's down here. It's doing automatic exposure, and then it kind of locks in.
Okay, so that's what, and that's kind of what I thought was actually happening. But what you just showed there is, I agreed. I thought that's what was going on, and it was able to do this amazing maneuver. Instead of turning like a normal fighter, it was able to just go like this. But now to me, it looks better. Actually, I see. In the TV mode, I think you have a clear image of the TIC TAC. I mean that's what it looks like. It's in black, but in TV mode, remember it's black and white. That's what the planes are going to look like we just saw. So
this.
Yeah.
Yeah. Let's just real quickly look at that little aspect of it, like the actual shape of the thing.
Yeah.
Right here, it looks like a Tic Tac. It looks like.
And before, I didn't think that was a good picture. I thought we were looking behind it, so I was like, "Well, I don't really know what I'm looking like." But you showed that it's moving constantly. So
But even in this image, it's not a smooth oval shape. It's got this slight figure eight shape, and it's larger on this side, on the left side, than it is on the right side.
I think the aspect is slightly away. You know, it's not direct on.
But no, but at that
It's
distance,
like,
the perspective wouldn't have any effects. You know, if it's a mile away, it's. I mean, sure, if it's like, you know, up close, then you get some perspective effect. But if it's miles away, it doesn't matter what the aspect is, because it's.
no, I mean, look
it's
at my
gonna be the
hand. I mean,
same.
my
Yeah,
hand's
but
like
your hand is
this.
close to the camera, so this is something that's miles away. It's not. You know, perspective doesn't work like that in the large scale. Like if
I mean, I don't know. I mean,
I have a Tic Tac here, my Tic Tac model, and
Awesome.
yes, if it's close to the camera, then the back of it is going to look like it is smaller than the front of it. But when it's over here, it doesn't really matter. It doesn't matter which way round it is, because it's far away. Perspective means that there's going to be no difference. So what we're looking at here in this video can't be the result of perspective unless it was only like 50 feet in front of the camera.
But you're zoomed in. It won't matter the aspect. I mean, Mick, we just looked at those other videos where the planes are changing aspect, and it
Sure,
looks
yeah,
differently.
but planes are odd shaped. We're talking about something that is ostensibly symmetrical.
Yes.
It doesn't have one end that is smaller than the other. And now, if you look at this now, this side is bigger, it seems, than this side. And you go forward and you scrub through it, you see, you know, a fairly interesting change in the shape.
looks like a Tic
Right.
Tac to me, man.
Now it's got the two little bumps down the bottom, and it's got this bit over here which is sticking out at the side. And I don't really see how you can get to this position from this perfectly regular thing.
I mean, I see it clear. I mean, just scroll through, like scroll back and forth. You know, grab the little mouse and move back and forth. And I mean, it's zoomed. You know, remember this thing is, you know, hopefully I can figure it out in my Nimitz deep dive, but I think it's around, you know, 10 to 15 miles, say, somewhere in that range. So you're still, I mean, think how far away we are zoomed in, you know.
But we're showing an irregularly shaped object at this point.
But if
like
you scroll back and forth, it's a Tic Tac, man. I mean, yeah, there's some blurry edges because it's like 15 miles away or whatever. But
okay,
I mean, that image right there is mind blowing to me, and it wasn't before. So I don't know. I guess thanks for showing me the right way.
I hear what you're saying. That, you know, it looks like a Tic Tac at this point.
Yeah, I mean, if you roll back and forth, and if this thing really is moving sideways, then to me, I'm like, point, we have a TV vivid, you know, picture.
At this point, it does actually look like, you know, like you were saying, the perspective. Let me get my face out of the way so it focuses. Focus camera. Like you can kind of see, like it looks narrower at one end than the other. But like I was saying, that really isn't how perspective works when something is 2 miles away or more.
I mean, using the pot, I mean, I can tell you when I'm looking at a fighter, like it really matters if it's pointing at you or if it's pointing away.
Right. But again, planes are odd-shaped things. They're not regular in the same way. I mean, why would this end on the left be bigger visually than the end on the right? How would that work?
I don't know. I mean, I think again, I think your best way is to video through. I mean, that's your most accurate, right? You're taking an average, I guess, of all the frames. And in that case, I just see it, you know.
It stays fairly consistent, though. Like, you know, at this point here, we've got these kind of blob, pointy area here. And that's through, you know, this point of the video. I'm scrubbing back and forwards at the end. I think that's fairly consistent that stays that way. And if you scrub through the entire thing, it kind of looks, you know, like you say, more regular at the start, even though it's still more blobby on the left-hand side. And it kind of looks like it's rotating, like it's turning to face the left a bit more, like if it's some kind of out of focus plane. Oops.
I don't see an out of focus plane. I mean, I see some slight out of focus. I think what you're talking about, those variations around the outside, it's slightly out of focus. If you're looking at long range.
But even so, if it was out of focus, it would be out of focus the same everywhere. Out of focus doesn't make one end smaller than the other end.
I think, you got to remember too, you're looking through like 15 miles of atmosphere. So like,
sure, but it's very solid.
It's
very, not solid, but it's very consistent through this entire thing. But anyway, I guess this is a point that we could probably argue back and forth for a while, and we may have limited time. So, should we table that for now, or do you?
Yes.
Want to argue more? All right. So I think that's pretty much all I wanted to talk about with the Tic Tac. Let me see. Yeah. So, do you have another favorite video that you would like to jump in and talk about?
Well, you mentioned you want to do the gimbal later. I don't know if you want to do that later or.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's later now. So.
You mentioned the gimbling. I guess we can go through.
All right, let me just really quick find the video. Where the heck is it? Tic Tac. That's not it. Official videos. Gimbal Cop HQ. Let me open it in the other viewer so I can see it a bit better. Video player I'm using is called Video Loop, and it's on the Mac.
Sorry, 1 second.
It's nice for scrubbing back and forth.
Sorry, grab my notes.
Okay, so I think just to tie this into what I was saying earlier, we've got both Gimbal and FLIR one, the Tic Tac video on screen, and the theory is that there needs to be a kind of a gimbal roll at a certain point near 0 degrees. The patents that I've looked at discuss being in the range of plus or minus 3 degrees, but that's not a hard limit. It's just kind of where these things need to happen, more or less. And I think what we see in both these videos is a gimbal roll around that range, where we see here on the left in FLIR 1. In the Nimbus video, we see these gimbal rolls, and we see the sky rotating. And I think in Gimbal, we see the same thing. When it rotates, I don't know if that comes through in the stream that we're looking at, but if you look at the sky, especially this area here, you see the sky is the light pattern in the sky, which is just kind of like how the light is hitting the camera, is rotating exactly the same as we see here. This is a bit of a more dramatic rotation there, but it's the same type of thing, I think. Let's zip back and forth on that a few times.
Okay. I mean, yes,
your
gimbal argument.
This thing here?
Yeah, I guess my biggest point, and I don't think it's been addressed, sorry.
Muted myself.
Sorry about that.
No worries.
So the biggest thing is
going on in the background here.
How it gimbals. Okay, so I see your argument, and although I've never seen it, I feel I needed to look into it. But the gimbal, it doesn't match what you're suggesting, right? Because you suggest in your videos, from what I understand, is that the gimbal is a 1-to-1 ratio, right? So it moves it rotates at a 1-to-1 ratio. But this thing, when it moves, from what I understand, it only goes 110 degrees. When you look at mechanical engineer Paul Bradley, basically he did a long analysis of this, and he believes he can prove definitively that it rotates. It would need to rotate at least 130 degrees minimum.
To do
but in
what?
this case, So basically, what you're suggesting, the mechanical internals of the pod, would need to rotate at a 1-to-1, right? So that
I'm not
would
sure what you
mean
mean by 1-to-1.
if that's the case, there's a ratio. So basically, it has to rotate a certain amount, and that amount that it's rotating does not match what we see on the gimbal. So if we look to the left here on the flare video, you see it's just one quick rotation, right? Yeah, I mean that's it, and it's over. When we look at gimbal,
no, there's two. It does that one, and then it does like another one right there. A small additional correction.
Okay, but for one thing, that's really fast. If you look at, you look how fast it gimbals, and when I used, when I flew over a target, when I messed up or whatever, the gimbal's really fast. And what we see here is like a little slow gimbal that doesn't. And from if you can look at Paul Bradley's, he says he's written to you with his analysis. Why doesn't it go?
He probably has written to me, but
as far as it should, right? You look on the left. Handles. If you look on the left, I'm sure you get a lot of hate, the same as which I despise. But it looks like it on the left. It flips very quickly and all the way, and on the right, the gimbal just.
They are different, but I
think
guess
it needs
one
to
point
be
here is
checked, because I believe it.
Yeah,
it doesn't move.
This is an app flare in 2004, and this is an app flare in 2015. So maybe the algorithm has changed.
Yeah,
and it looks pretty much the same, I guess, in terms of all the symbology and everything. But it could be that they've improved the algorithm, because part of the whole thing is to avoid things that are distractions to the pilot.
I don't know why it would. Yeah.
But I think the most significant indicator for me is the fact that we do see this rotation of the light field, like the pattern of light in the background, which I think you can see even here, that if you go back and forth, there is this rotation. You see this rotate, and then you see these kind of streaks of light and dark in the sky rotate at the same time. Which I can't really see how that would happen if it wasn't an artifact of the camera rotating.
Yeah, I don't. I guess you'd have to show me where it's moving more. I don't.
All right. So
because the whole
look at the sky.
Okay. Yeah.
Look at the sky as a whole, and kind of the angle of the shapes. Obviously the horizon rotates a little bit when the bank angle changes, which it is doing right there. But if we look, let's see, I'm trying to find where it rotates, but the bank angle isn't.
I mean, I see the bank angle changing, and
right. All right, okay, so right
I don't know, that moves it.
Just before the bank angle starts to change, there's a rotation of the object, and you can see it if you focus on, say, this region up here underneath the 2x zoom indicator, you'll see these shapes kind of move over. Like just going to rotate like this, like the whole area in the sky is rotating. You can see a little bit if you kind of focus on this. It would help if you like blurred your vision a little bit, like squinted at it. But sometimes it actually works better if you look at it at a smaller zoom level as well. You can kind of see it a little clearer, because the shapes kind of move together. This area here, I think, is where you see it most clearly.
And you don't think it's moving when he moves the jet? I mean, it seems like the horizon.
It starts before he actually does that right here. You see the horizon indicator isn't moving at all, and yet at the start of it, it is actually moving the sky and it's rotating the object, and they move in sync.
I'll have to look at it later. I don't honestly. I don't see it big. I'm sorry. I don't.
Okay, no, I get it, and I think you
I've been known not to I've learned not to underestimate you. So I mean, I'll look at it, but it's not so obvious. I mean, you look on the left and like it's obvious. There's like this.
Yeah, here I think you've got perhaps more direct sun or something, and you see this big rotation around. But this at least shows that this type of rotation does actually happen. And I think it does, like we were discussing earlier, I think we do actually see the shape of the glare rotate in this one, which maybe something you can look into in a little bit more detail offline, to zoom in and look at the pixels. This one, if you are going to look into this, I would encourage you to make sure you have the very best quality version of the video, which is the version that was released by the Pentagon. And I have links to them on my site, and I can give them if you want. And I
Okay.
converted the WMV to an MP4 losslessly.
Okay, and then what about the shape of the glare? I mean,
Yeah.
why is it not
that's a good
circular?
point.
I mean, why is it not circular? Why is it flying saucer shaped? I guess.
Yeah. I mean, why is that glare I showed you earlier flying saucer shaped? It's sometimes glares look like that.
But wouldn't that change? I mean, like when you rotate
it does change. It does change. Let's look at that. Actually, that's a good point. So I'm zoomed in as much as I can on this one. Let me just make it full screen so I can zoom in even more. So that's maximum. Okay. So look at the shape of it way back here. Now it looks like, I don't know what that looks like, a peanut with a pointy end or something. And going back earlier than that, when it's in white hot mode, it looks even different to that. And we get to here, you kind of start to see aspects of glare. You see what these little spikes. It kind of looks like a spinning top. You see there's the body is this shape, and you've got these spikes up and down. You keep going forward, you see kind of more of these spikes, and it's changing shape. It's getting longer and kind of thinner, and then this area here kind of gets more bulbous. You keep going, it kind of changes shape again. It's more now like of a straight edge diamond shaped with this towards the bottom. And then when it actually rotates, I think there's an even more dramatic change. It changes from here, is kind of like longer and a bit thinner in this direction, to here, it's kind of more squat and rounded. So it does actually change shape in a fairly significant way throughout the video, and here it's going to look a little bit different again.
Yeah, I mean, but how does glare do that? I bet half the people watching, or maybe more than half, if it's your channel, they just see glare when they watch you do that, and I bet the other half of the people just see a saucer. I bet you could do a social experiment of that.
It looks like a flying saucer. I think that's why it works so well.
But it's a defined edge. Yeah, but there's a defined edge. You look on the left side there. I mean, that is a defined circular edge.
Here's one that I did myself.
Yeah.
This is a hot object that I'm pointing my thermal camera at. It's actually the sun, because I don't have a jet hovering in the sky. And we're getting the exact same effects. It's a different shape, sure, but we're getting, almost, if you kind of ignore the fact that we've got some extra spikes on this side, we've got something that looks, very similar. I didn't use the unsharp mask, so we don't have the white glare around it. But we've got something that has very similar aspects to what we're seeing here. It's kind of longer in one direction than the other. The sun is obviously perfectly round, so you'd expect the glare to be perfectly round. And we've got this kind of like top and bottom spikes with these little grayish areas kind of coming off it. And if I rotate the camera, it
stays in the same location.
Yeah.
I mean, it stays in the same.
If you look at the right hand side, this is the one where I derotate the scene. I rotate the camera, derotate the scene, and you see the glare itself rotates. You're looking at the right hand side here.
Okay.
Now this was kind of like.
So it's a flying sun, I guess? Is that what
it's a flying heat source. It's something that's very hot. So we're looking at something that's very hot, and it creates some kind of glare with well-defined edges in the thermal camera, and these little, this grayish spikes coming off it. And in this particular video, it takes on this shape. And we've seen similar shapes in other videos, like see this one here. We can see that here is a shape that, it's not quite as long and flat, but it is still kind of a roundish shape. that resembles this. So I don't think it's too much of a stretch to go from something like this to something like this. If there's something up with the optics that is just making this glare take on this particular shape. I've seen saucer-shaped glares as well. Like some cameras have a more of a, I guess, rectangular aperture, and it kind of makes the glare in them be a bit saucer-shaped.
Oh, and I guess so what do we end up on? What do you think? How far away do you think this thing is?
Because if we look at that's the other aspects of it. Yeah. So I think I originally did a kind of a simple ballpark figure thing, and it turned out, I can't remember what it was now, but like 20 nautical miles or something like that. I started out at, and then you kind of came in and you did an initial video where you talked about it using a standard rate of turn of what is that, 3 degrees per second.
I mean, originally I drew it like I know, and then tested it with the simulator. And so when those two matched, I was like, okay, I think this is a watertight.
I don't know if you've been following any of the discussion on Metabunk, but there's been a lot of input into this particular question, like how fast is this actually turning, and
can we do the field of view? Because, and I kind of underestimate you because your argument on this field of view thing, right? Your knowledge of the field of view. Why don't you use that same knowledge to do the gimbal or to do the go fast size?
I did. I did it in my very first Go Fast video. I calculated the size at, I think, about 6 feet. I think at the time I was using a field of view of 1.5 when it should have been 0.7, but it's still the same kind of ballpark, not a huge object.
Okay. Anyway, sorry. I know I haven't followed it.
Like more recently, like, a lot of people have been doing very sophisticated analysis on that. Like, you broke it down and you did it with I think 4 different points, and you took you did the arcs for these 4 different points and different rates of turn, and then you kind of did the intersections of the lines of bearing to where they ended up. The other people have kind of replicated similar work. I did something myself in GeoGebra, this program that I use. I mean, I think you kind of like you moved away from your initial position because you made a mistake, kind of saying that rate of turn depends upon the mass of the plane when it's just the bank angle.
Yeah, another, like, I was just trying to teach. I would hope that people would. I want to just make less stupidity, I guess, out there. That's my aim. And I appreciate actually your skepticism. I appreciate skeptics. I believe it should be scientifically based. If we see new evidence.
Yeah, I'm definitely
yes
into science and stuff. So this.
I can look into it and see what they're saying. But so, what was your final range? What you think it's?
It was actually kind of, you could actually, with very little tweaking of the parameters, get the lines of bearing to be essentially parallel. So there's pretty much a very, very wide range of possible distances it could be.
Okay. I mean, I'll look at it, but if you just, can you go back to where you put those 2 videos next to each other where they're playing?
Which 2 videos were we looking
at? Those 2, Gimbal and Flare, that just like you had.
Yeah, let me just there. All right.
Because these are the same. So that's narrow 2, and that's narrow.
Yeah, let me change this one to narrow 2. Where is it?
Yeah.
Oh, wait. Oh, hang on. Okay, let me get to a better narrow 2. Well,
that's TV. I think it's all the way at the end. You'll be good.
There we go.
I think it's.
There we go. This is narrow 2, white hot. So this is basically the exact same setup on both things.
Yeah. So basically, it would be, although they've been different objects. Yeah, but basically, what you look at in the top is you have your 7 left turning. If you hit play on both, you'll see. If you can, I think. So you look at the top, it's going so slow, and then we look at the gimbal, right? And the gimbal is cooking. You know, look at that field
Yeah.
of view change.
Yeah. Well, this is obviously a very different situation because in this one you're flying much more straight towards FLIR one, and you're flying straight towards the object more or less within 8 degrees at the most. But in gimbal at the start you are 53 degrees left, so that's you looking out the left-hand window at more than 45 degrees, 53 degrees,
Yes.
and so there's a lot more. And the plane is banking very steeply here, whereas in this instance it's not banking at all. So there's no change in the angle really from the banking angle of the plane. Some people argue that it is actually banking very slightly. Let me ask you that actually. Does the movement of the horizon indicator here indicate to you that the plane might be essentially banking very, very slightly? Like here, this side is 1 pixel lower than this side. Is that anything, or is that just kind of noise?
I think that's the air just flowing over the wings. He's probably an autopilot. If you look at, if you can tell if they're an autopilot, because no one can keep it manually on 10 feet, within plus or minus 10 feet. I mean, you can maybe,
right?
But no. So the machine is flying at that point, just because the altitude is so spot on. If you're flying especially he's looking down in the targeting pod. He's not technically even flying the plane right now. He's just looking down. No, that's your air just going over the wings, just like. Affecting.
I don't know if you have the same status stuff in the targeting pods you use, but I'm wondering if you know if this, where it says here, I think it says heading and B alt, barometric altitude.
That's heading.
That is the autopilot.
Yep.
Is that indicating it's in autopilot for both?
Yeah, we don't have that indicator, but that would, I assume it is. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So
because that's when you select it, you select heading and you select B altitude, which is your normal altimeter altitude. I believe.
Yeah.
Barometric pressure. Yeah.
Yeah. Which I guess to explain that real quickly is just planes measure their altitude using the air pressure, which is the barometric pressure, and they all use like a standard setting so that they're all in the same barometric altitude, even though they might actually be, that's not the actual altitude. It's just something that you all use so that you can be at a specific altitude. Does it work? I suppose it's the same when in fighter jets and doing things like that. You still want to have a common reference for the altitude.
You have to, right? Because we separate in altitude blocks, and so if someone's on the wrong altimeter setting, it's very dangerous. Yeah.
All right, so I think like gimbal, there's disagreement about how far away it is. There's disagreement about is it a rotating glare or not. Do you have any opinion about this, the white glow around it? Oops,
I mean, right away it looked weird to me. It looks super weird. I've looked at, you do get some pixelation, and I've seen on your videos where you do get that white around it. I show it in my video as well with F-16s. You can see it in the other videos. But normally, I mean, that's your normal. Yeah, that's what it normally looks like. We're very close right now. You're probably zoomed in. But that's what it looks like. I mean, really, like that's what we should be seeing. Honestly,
this is what you expect.
Yeah, that's what I expect.
That's what people say.
And so I can imagine, and I can see how Underwood it may have accelerated out of there, because I know he probably went to wide field of view and then he looks for it, and there's nothing there. I mean, I don't know. Yeah.
Well, we've been going for a while. You want to talk a little bit about some of the other videos, or
I think we're good. I'd like to talk again, Mick. I think.
Okay.
I think it would be a good use.
Yeah, no,
in the future,
I think like maybe we could offline. We can talk about the areas of disagreement and these little things that we've touched on. The gimbal roll thing. I am interested in I don't want to get into a big fight with Commander Fravor, but it would be good, I think, if we could resolve this issue where he talks about he doesn't think that the camera needs to rotate going left to right, which I think we kind of show that it does actually do that in at least the FLIR 1 video, and the going front to back I think is an internal thing, but maybe we can try to figure that out.
Yeah, I mean,
you could ask someone.
Yep, I can definitely ask. I mean, even with that gimbaling though, I mean, I can honestly say, like, in whatever, I don't know, maybe 600 hours, 700 hours of literally flying with this and trying to, fight with it, I've never seen the gimbal effects you're talking about. I don't know. I've never seen.
Yeah. Well, what about even the one on the FLIR 1 video where you see this rotation at 49 seconds, like that one there? You ever seen anything like that?
Yeah, but not in air to air. I've only seen it over the ground. So nothing noticeable
here. So
yep.
I mean, what?
I've never. It's never been something that would affect what I'm looking. I've never been. I mean, the only time I would notice any of these things, Mick, like the only time I would be looking into why the pod works a certain way, is to figure out how it, how to avoid some of these effects. But we don't have any if I fly right over the target, yes, we have tactics to avoid this gimbaling, right? We actually check so that we're not flying right over the target. Like that is our standard maneuver. But there's no, there's no procedure for air-to-air gimbal avoidance. It's just not a factor. So.
Yeah. I've actually seen some targeting pods pop up a message that says gimbal roll before it does this thing. If I had my druthers, I would have. If I had my wherewithal, if I knew what I was doing, I would have had that one ready. But I don't. But that this is actually something that I've seen. Like it pops up a message and says gimbal roll, and then it does a big gimbal roll. So I think it is something that happens. But
I guess, but it's I don't honestly, Mick. My question would be, what could physically cause this this glare that you're talking about? I mean, I mean, what could is this a flying flashlight, or your argument is that the pod is just broken?
No, it's a flying very hot thing. It's obviously just in the
I think that's what it's showing. Actually, it is a flying hot thing, but there's nothing shooting out the sides. I mean, it's
right. But what's causing this?
Yeah, a crazy. That's why I think it's a UAP. I mean, that's why I'm here, Mick.
It's not a shape
I think it's crazy.
It's not a star-shaped craft turning into a Tic Tac.
But that's TV.
This is infrared.
No, this is that's IR.
Yeah, this is infrared. This is infrared,
which I think is being affected. I think your infrared of this object is messed up. I mean,
yeah, I think it's the same as this. I think it's glare because it's it's kind of overloading the optics. And you're getting light spilling over in different directions, and you're getting diffraction spikes.
Yeah. I think that's but nothing else does that, Mick. Things. So at any rate, it's anomalous. I mean, nothing else.
Yeah. All right. Well, I guess it'd be great if we could find the thing. The thing is, like, there's no FLIR footage out there because it's all classified.
We need more footage, man. We need more footage, and that's why when you're out there on the news and saying all this stuff, I think it helps us get more more footage, man. We need more data because they have. This is just 74 seconds, right? But whenever we turn on the tapes when we start the planes, so they have data from this engagement, or they had the HUD, the radar, and the targeting pod, and that would have answered a lot of these questions.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. We know some people have seen what happens in the next 5 seconds after this flew off to the side.
My guess is he goes to wide field of view and then it's gone. I mean, honestly.
Why has nobody talked about that? We've got all these witnesses who said they've watched the full video, and we don't see that. And Underwood himself says the rest of the tape shows nothing interesting.
I think they believed, as I did. If you look at it initially, it looks like it's jumping. I mean.
Right, and it would be off. All right. Well, we could go back and forth on this all day, but perhaps now is the time to mull upon it a little and regroup at some later date. And I want to thank you very much for taking all this time out of your day, nearly 2 hours, to have this discussion. And it was great to do it in a nice, friendly manner. And hopefully we've touched on a few points. And you've told me stuff, and I've told you stuff, and we've got things to think about.
Excellent. Yeah, thanks, Mick. Yeah, I'm not, a caustic person by nature, whatever. That's how it rolled. But yeah, if you're willing to, listen to evidence and change your mind if possible, then I'm willing to listen as well.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I totally am. And I want more evidence. That would be great. I'd love to get
yes,
more info.
I think that's what we need. And then we can stop, nitpicking, 70-second videos or 30-second videos, and we can start looking at much longer tapes and like
that would be
show
ideal.
compelling case. Because at the end of the day, it does need to. We do need to show that it's extraordinary. Extraordinary. It requires extraordinary evidence. So.
Yeah. Yeah, and we should tell the government. Yeah, release the data so that we can analyze it. Me and Chris.
All right.
We'll get on the job. Put us on the task force.
Hey, Joe.
All right, Chris.
No.
I'm gonna let you go. Thank you very much again. Okay.
All right. Thanks, Mick.